Hello and welcome to Post Tech Pulse. Today we are going to discuss some future invention. Today we are going to discuss some future inventions which you might expect in the next 1 or 2 decades. Some of these inventions might already be there in some prototype form, but they might be made available to the public extensively later on. So one so the first one is, in the near future you might have, like, most furniture most furniture might be 3D printed, and it might be printed in the form of mesh to reduce the weight and to use as less material as possible. And what you might be able to see is that there might be 3D printing with regards to materials which are not that easily printable nowadays. There might be large scale 3D printed objects made of steel and hard polymer, and you might also see 3D printed vehicles as well, or at least vehicle chassis or bodies. One product which might show up quite soon, or which might already be available in some prototype phase, are now these are things like these products might be this product might be an instant language earbud. People might have earbuds with them, and they would be able to talk to people anywhere in the world without having to use a translator on their phone. They would just go and talk to anybody who is speaking a different language, and that person will also have earbuds, and that person will also talk in his own language, but when he talks you would hear in your local language. So everything will be processed immediately in real time, and the need for translators might wither away. One invention which is already on its in the market already is the smart glasses. And it's also quite controversial because it has created a lot of privacy concerns. But we don't know yet whether smart glasses might be made easily available in the market, or will there be any regulation which will try to restrict smart glasses as much as possible, because when you wear smart glasses you can record everything you see without the other person knowing, and that can evolve into smart contact lenses, which might be even more controversial with the famous Black Mirror vibes. But there is a possibility. Another invention which people might see quite soon is brain computer interface. Now, brain and machine interface is something which scientists are already researching upon, and they've had some breakthroughs in it. But because it's an invasive procedure, that's why there are quite a lot of challenges. But if, let's say, this technology is developed in a way which is safe, it might help, it might be a great help to people who are physically challenged. So there are a lot of chances that there might be marketable products in the market, especially in the health industry, which will facilitate the brain and machine interface. So a person who might have lost a body part, he could have an implant or a robotic arm, a robotic leg, somewhat human like, and he could control that with his brain. How it could be done, that all depends upon how fast medical science can create that interface in a safe manner. One more one most one of the most interesting parts of the future inventions which people might see in the next few decades is mobile homes, movable houses. So, in the near future, the concept of houses being fixed to a location might become obsolete. There might no longer be the need, there might no longer be a need to keep houses at one particular place, particularly because of prefab construction. You might have already seen a lot of buildings and offices, hospitals made up of prefab material, of containers. And these materials can be shifted from one place to another. So the idea of concrete might be disrupted totally, because when you construct houses made up of concrete, people are spending their whole life incomes, all of their savings to build a house, and many people can't even build a house in their whole lifetime. So the cost of constructing a house is way out of control, or way out of reach, way out of the reach of the common man. And then if he has to construct a home, and then if he has to move to some other place, he cannot shift his home because it's made up of concrete. He might need to move to some other place because of economic conditions, security conditions, crime, infrastructure, public facilities, war, or any other reason. And that might also disrupt the real estate industry, because the real estate industry basically is mostly profiting off because of being a monopoly, or because of acquiring a good location. So if you have like a house in a prominent location of Islamabad, Lahore, or Karachi, or any other part of the world, if the location is important, you might notice that the need for providing better services might not necessarily be there if it's run by, if it's managed by the local administration and not managed privately. But even if it's a private housing society, even if it is a private housing society, it might not give services which are good enough, because if the location is important, people will still come, they might get their profit. Now imagine when housing societies might realize that people will no longer live in their neighborhoods and will no longer be paying the service charges. If there are no good facilities, people will move their homes to some other place. When that kind of a transition might happen, the real estate industry will undergo a massive change, particularly because right now, when all properties are sold, most of housing authorities, regardless of whether they are private or government, they are relaxed. They know it. They know that people, once they've constructed their houses, they might not move to some other place. And you might also see inventions might inventions which you are already seeing, something like the touring cabins or touring cars, touring trucks, touring buses, livable spaces on wheels. These type of inventions already exist, but this might transition into an industry where a lot of people might actually be carrying their living spaces along with them. In this particular case, the living space might be comparatively small because it might be as long as a bus, not more than that. A bus, single story or double story. That's it. And people might take that bus or truck to any place that they like, which you might already have seen on the internet with regards to people who are living in touring vehicles. But this might become quite common. The only thing that people might require while moving from one place to another is when they shift their homes, they need to have an electricity connection, probably a gas connection if it's available in that area, and a drain connection. If these three things are available, the electricity being optional because people might transition towards solar in the future in totality. Maybe grids might get obsolete. So the only challenge might be to connect the drain and have a water source. That's it. One big invention which people might see in the next few decades and also present extensively could be the traveling pod. It could be the traveling pod. Somewhat similar to what you saw in the movie Wall-E, the flying chairs in Wall-E. So basically what I'm talking about are not flying chairs or flying seats. You'll have a similar thing, but it might be enclosed in the form of a pod with some sort of a windshield and not flying, not flying, but something which might travel on, something which might move on wheels on the ground. Particularly because the idea of cars, the way we know cars today, might get that idea might get obsolete, and it would not make sense for people to carry a machine which is 20 30 times larger their own self to go from one place to another place. Now, those of you who are living in areas which have a lot of traffic and who might have to face huge traffic jams and congestion every day while going to work or university or wherever, you might know how worse does it get only because in a car that travels on in a car that moves on four wheels is carrying only one man. People might have a car today. If they have to travel alone, or if they have to travel with three or four extra passengers, this might not make sense to people in the future, because mostly people, when they get out of their homes, a lot of them are alone. So a person can fit on one seat itself. The amount of space, the amount of width you need for one person to pass from somewhere is the width that is equivalent of a motorcycle. A motorcycle carries one man, and you can see easily that it can get from one point to another point without facing a lot of traffic, because it occupies less space and it can pass through very narrow passages. So this product would be eliminating the extra equipment that is around a human being. It would be just one seat and with a windshield, and it would come with challenges as well, obviously, because of its small size. There would be balancing issues, a lot of balancing issues. The center of gravity will need to be adjusted in such a way that it does not skid or topple away. And the windshield, that would also be a very important aspect of it. This product is something which would launch in a way that people might. This product would be an intermediate product between a motorcycle and a car. It would give the benefits of a car to people who can afford a motorcycle. It might take some time for this thing to come into the market, but there are already prototypes. The prototypes are not exactly as small as a seat or the traveling pod. There are some prototypes in the form of gyro cars manufactured by some companies, and there are a lot of similar vehicles in China. Some very small versions of you could say a rickshaw, something which you could call a cabin scooter or a cabin car, something which occupies very less space and is still enclosed. It provides shelter from winter and rain and the sun, and it also does not have these, and it does not put the burden of balancing the vehicle on the driver. So a person who has one extra passenger behind him, like on the motorbike, he might not have to worry about balancing. So these are basically some products which are already there. The first transition from the car might be these cabin scooters that you are seeing in China. These might become available to the whole world at any time. And the next breakthrough might be the traveling pod, as small as it can be. I will be talking about the mobile houses, how it is going to affect real estate and how it is going to break the monopolies, and also how the car as we know might become obsolete in the next videos. So these were some of the few inventions which you might see in the next few decades. If you like the video, subscribe to this channel, follow us on Instagram, and stay tuned. Thank you.